Good morning and good afternoon, folks. We are going to get started here in just a couple of minutes. Just want to do a quick sound check with my other presenters. Nathan, can you still hear me loud and clear?
Yes, I can. You hear me,
Awesome.
Tom?
Yes,
Good.
can hear you very well. Thank you. Val, are you there?
Online.
Hey, Val. And Josh, can you hear me?
I'm present. Can you guys hear me?
Josh. Oh, yeah. Now we can hear you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
All right. Awesome. Awesome. We are just almost ready to get started here. It is a minute till showtime. Just wanted to say thank you to everyone taking time out of their Friday. I will just ask my co-presenters to mute their notifications if they have any background notifications. And I think our attendees would appreciate that as well. My name is Talha Bakar. I work here at Zoho with a number of my awesome colleagues who are on this call. And then we also have a special guest from the accounting firm Presti and Nagley, and that is Josh Blesnick. So before we get started, just wanted to do a quick intro from whoever's joining. If you can hear me and you can see the slide, go ahead and let me know in the chat bar where you are logging in from today. And I'm going to go ahead and actually launch a pre-poll question. We got Miami, we got Austin. Thank you guys so much for joining. And I figured it was, it's probably a good time to ask this question. How are you doing today? How are you doing so far? Surviving, quarantined. It's going. I can't even remember. I think I'm on my 7th week of quarantine, maybe 8th. I might need to start scratching tallies on the wall at this point, but I'll just share this with everyone. Looks like we're kind of split along the top 3. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started. So this session is, of course, how to set up a new accounting system. This is going to be through the eyes of our technology consultant, accounting consultant, Josh Blesnick. Here's a quick intro of everyone who's joining. I know it seems like there's kind of a ridiculous number of people for a 1-hour webinar, but the cool thing is we've been doing a few of these, and we kind of keep it like a podcasty sort of conversational style, and it seems to be a lot more informative. So I'd like to just bring up my other colleagues to give a quick intro of themselves. Val Steed, you there?
Yes. Good morning, everyone, or good evening, wherever you're at. Pleasure to be here. I'm a CPA. I've got a background in working with accounting systems and accounting information systems for about 30 years. So a lot of experience to add here, and thrilled that we could also have Josh come on from a firm because he's currently practicing, which I think brings in a real special flavor.
Thanks so much, Val. And we've got Nathan, who I work with on our accountants team. Hey there, Nathan.
Hey, how's everyone doing? I've been in the accounting industry for about 5 years, and I did accounting advisory work in a CPA firm, and I also did some corporate accounting. So I have a little experience with a little bit of everything, and I'm excited to hear what Josh has to add.
Thank you very much. And the man of the hour, Josh, you there?
Yes, I am.
Hey, Josh, how's it going? Tell us a little bit about what you do at Presti Nagley. I know you'll give us an introduction of the firm, but just want to hear more about you.
Sure. So I've been in the accounting industry for about 5 or 6 years, and currently we're at Presti and Nagley. I am a technology consultant where we implement, migrate, convert, as well as support and train small businesses on accounting systems, and try to make sure that everybody gets what they need out of their data. And that's what we're going to discuss today.
Awesome. And just to clarify, I think the small business profile at Presti Nagley is a little bit larger than like the typical small business. I think you guys start at like 5 million in revenue and up.
So we actually take care of everybody, from somebody who has a bodega on a street corner in New York City to a $25 million company.
Got it. So yeah, let us know. Just give us a quick intro of Presti and Nagley. kind of what you guys do and why you're here, or why you wanted to do this presentation with us.
Sure. So Preston Igley is a full-fledged accounting firm located in New York City. We are audit and tax heavy, and we've been around since 1982, and we have a technology division where I'm a consultant, and we specialize in the consulting arena of the technology aspect and be able to help small businesses get what they need out of their system. We've done lots of Zoho Books migrations and setups, and I've been working with Tala from the beginning of inception, so to speak, of Zoho Books in the market. So I'm very happy to be here, and we're a great firm in New York City, and I'm glad that I can shed some light on how to set up your account.
And we're super excited to have you. Just real quick, just for anyone who's watching, you guys are a firm that provides services all across the country, as well as Canada. Is that true?
Correct. All across the country, Canada, as well as in Europe. I actually, my first Zoho client when I started at Preston Igley was in Sweden.
Okay, awesome. So you guys are an international firm. Awesome, good to know. So without further ado, we're going to get into kind of this really complex process. I'm going to hand over the reins to you, Josh, and take it away.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Tala. I appreciate it. So thank you, everybody, for joining. And I really am excited about this. I hope you guys are excited, too. The setup process is something that I deal with regularly when clients come in for consults and ask me, hey, are my books set up correctly? And this is kind of what we go through the step-by-step. So there are 8 steps, and we'll walk through them throughout the presentation and kind of shed more light on each step specifically. But we have chart of accounts, lists, tagging, reporting tags, modules and apps, custom forms and styles, bank feeds, reports, and then after everything's set up, you're ready to start working. So before we even set up the accounting system, first we have to understand what are the requirements of having an accounting software and why do you need to have it. I think that a lot of people in the beginning say, hey, I need an accounting system for taxes at the end of the year, or I need it to figure out what my deductions are. But realistically, it's for you as a business owner to see where you're at. So the first thing is that we want to have a scalable system that will allow you to grow, be able to have multiple users, access your books from anywhere, and have different levels of permission, so you can have different types of users using the system. Also, ability to handle uptick in transactions with potential of processing hundreds or even thousands of invoices, depending on the type of business that you have. And then reporting complexity. The main part of having an accounting system is to get the reports that you need, and as a business owner to be able to have a screenshot of where you're holding.
And just real quick, Josh, so if I'm a business owner and I'm looking at a few different accounting softwares, what should I be looking at in terms of my own business to figure out whether this accounting software will actually work for me, especially if I'm comparing multiple apps? What is something that you kind of recommend to your clients?
So actually, in 2 slides from now, we're going to touch on that. But to answer your question in short until I expand, the main thing is that depending on the type of business, you need to understand your business as a business owner. Once you have a grasp of what you do, how you want to scale and go forward, you try to figure out a system that will be able to have other features. So as an example, if you're a real estate company and you manage property, you want to be able to have a system that you can have separate files for each different type type of property, be able to manage the property separately, or within Zoho Books, you can have tags, for which we'll discuss later, for specific real estate property. So it's really just being able to understand the business and to see what you're trying to get out of your system.
Okay, got it. Thanks.
No problem. So just moving forward, using the system, the main thing is we want what features do you need, and that's what we were just discussing with Tal's question. And also, how familiar are you and your staff with accounting concepts? I think that typically a lot of business owners don't really, you're running your business and you're not in the weeds day to day with the accounting part of it, and you want something that's simple and easy to be able to pull reports and look at it. And that's definitely a goal that I hear from lots of business owners, to be able to have someone else deal with it and say, hey, I want to look at my P&L or want to look at my balance sheet and make sure things are in order.
Josh, I will add as well, whenever I was doing accounting advisory work, I used to run into the issue all the time where a lot of clients were doing it themselves in the beginning. They kind of just lost track, and then they wanted to hire someone later, and then you had to do a lot of cleanup. So from my experience, I always kind of told clients it's better to have accounting in the beginning to get everything set up, and then you can focus on it yourself later once everything's smooth.
100%. And that is the major thing that I see. And what happens is as a firm, we do consultations. So I have a lot of business owners that come in and say, hey, I want to start my books. Can you sit down with me for 5-6 hours or 3 hours, walk me through it? Typically, those types of things that they are asking are bank feeds, are my chart of accounts set up correctly? Do things look accurate?
Yeah.
And then once those are set up and you sit with, a professional or a consultant, you're able to go forward and start handling your books yourself.
Yeah, for sure.
Wait, are you guys telling me that trial by fire is a bad idea when it comes to an accounting system?
Often what it ends up being, Tala, is you end up with a mess that the accountant has to redo everything. And so you end up doing your own work and then having to pay an accountant to clean it up. And when you usually end up get stuck in something like that, where you pay an accountant to clean it up versus set it up from the beginning, it's a bigger bill, much bigger bill to clean it up than it is to set it up right and get it going.
Oh, that's a good point. When we get to our, in about 4 or 5 minutes or so, we're going to launch our first poll question. And I just want to ask you guys, the three of you, kind of like a really brief summary of the most nightmarish kind of accounting books you've ever seen. So
awesome. So just to piggyback what Val said, in terms of paying, having a bigger bill and paying someone, something that I'll touch on later, just a note, is a lot of people think that their accounting system and their books is really for their accountant. And realistically, a lot of it is just for yourself. And we'll touch on that in more detail, but it's really what you as a business owner need to get out of your system as well as have a clean set of books so your accountant can interpret what's going on.
And I want to mention to folks, there's going to be these slides available as a handout at the end of this presentation. And then also as we move forward in Showtime, the cool thing is you can actually go back. So, if we have a few moments, you'd like to go back and see something that Josh was talking about, you can do that.
Awesome. So, Tal, can you just move back to the...
Oh, yeah. Sorry about that.
No problem. So other additional considerations when setting up your accounting system is, one, the first thing is you should speak to your accountant. Make sure he's on board and ask for recommendations and feedback to make sure that, at the end of the year for tax purposes, if there's quarterly reviews, stuff like that, that they're able to interpret, use the system, and be able to get the information they need to be able to build financials and have the tax return. Also, another consideration is security. A lot of accounting systems such as Zoho Books has bank feeds where you can have bank transactions come over, and you want to make sure that it's secure, which Zoho Books and Zoho itself is the most secure system out there. Also, different features, which we'll touch on because Zoho has a suite of applications, as well as integration of apps and making sure that there are integrations available, software accessibility, customer service and support, as well as a consultant that would be able to help you if you have any questions. I do answer emails at 2 o'clock in the morning sometimes, but not regularly, so I'm not going to put that out there. And then also the ability to read reviews of current users and specifically those in specific industries.
Awesome. And one thing I just wanted to ask is, Nathan, so when you're working with some of these firms, as well as businesses and kind of your previous experience, what are some of the other additional considerations like that you might look into? For example, are you looking at the industry they are and specific features they might need, or do you feel like there's kind of just a core set of functionality you can go off of?
So really there is a core set of functionality you can go off of, because at the end of the day, an accountant, really all they look at is your revenue and expenses for your tax prep and your balance sheet. So that's how you can start the basics. But at the same time, obviously, if you go into a retail store, it's totally different than real estate. So you have to take that into consideration, start looking at technologies you can implement. Obviously, Josh has, he's made a career off of that part, but it's something where you really have to take a look at really everything, but you can start with the basics, which is just the money that's coming in and coming out.
Okay, got it.
There's a process called a needs analysis, which I would highly recommend. A lot of small businesses really don't need to go through this process. Their stuff, as Nathan mentioned, is going to be fairly, general. It won't be any specific issues. But in your particular business, if you think you've got complexity hiding somewhere in receivables or inventory, or payroll can catch us by surprise at times, or if you've got special billing processes you have to pay and match and things like that, it's worth getting somebody that's a good local. I really do like to see a lot of local consultants, but local consultant or somebody that really is good at this needs analysis process to just spend some time going through what you're doing now currently, either by hand or another accounting system or whatever, to figure out what you're looking for. There is, you're looking for the pitfalls, the big potholes in the road that you don't see just in a general setting.
Kind of like thinking of scalability, in the future, what are some of the issues I might run into, not just kind of tomorrow.
Yeah, we had one small business that we were going in with our standard, years ago, we used to do a lot with SIMA accounting, and walked in there and, this will be an easy implementation, get in there. Oh my goodness, their payroll deductions and special payroll stuff. They got caught in the state of Oregon with all these real special withholdings. And it was a big deal. We didn't see it on the front. So you need to do as much upfront analysis of your needs with this needs analysis as you can.
Right.
And Val, just to go off that, that's one of the things that we do. And what I think is there are a lot of businesses that know what they want, but sometimes the system, we tried as a consultant, try to adapt the system to your needs. So doing a needs analysis and going through the business process of what you're currently doing, if it's paper or something else, and getting a clear understanding of what you need, and then integrating other applications or making the system actually work to fit the needs.
Right. And that's the value of a firm like Preston Nagley is you guys come in because you've seen enough of this. You've got the right questions to ask to where someone can say, I know I do this or I do that. And oops, there's a trip up, right? Because you've got these set of questions of things and you're specifically looking for those potholes. So that's great. And that's what you're looking for, folks.
So real quick, before you jump into the meat and potatoes, I want to launch our first official poll question. It should be pretty easy. Just want to let everyone know, if there's any CPAs out there who are attending this, you are eligible to receive CPE credit. You just have to answer 3 of the 4 poll questions that we'll launch and take the evaluation that comes up on your screen at the end. And we'll send you a CPE certificate. So I'll give this another 5 seconds or so, and we'll just kind of show this. to everybody. It looks like people are still answering. I'll give it another few seconds. All right. Looks like law, finance, accounting. I know I kind of pushed them all together. Had a decent amount. If you put other and you don't mind sharing, let us know in the chat box. It's always interesting to know. But yeah, go ahead, Josh.
Awesome. So we are going to now get into the meat and potatoes. So the first thing, setting up your accounting system and being able to start, realistically, the skeleton of everything is your chart of accounts. So we have your balance sheet, which are your bank accounts, assets, liabilities, and equity, as well as your income buckets and expenses and reoccurring expenses. One thing to note is that the balance sheet realistically is for your accountant, and the income, the P&L income statement is realistically for you to see where you're at. And a lot of people ask questions in terms of how to formulate your accounts and how to make sure the account structure looks good, which we'll expand upon in a second. But realistically, it's up to you to find out the information that you need. So just moving on to the next slide. So the chart of accounts is a list of all your company's accounts together in one place. It gives the skeleton and a bird's eye view of every area of your business to date. And one of the things to notice, and I did put this on the slides, is the chart of account numbering sequence. So depending on the type of accounts, and the chart of accounts flows balance sheet first, income statement, and then your income statement. So it's the bank accounts, assets, liabilities, and then income and expenses. Depending on how your books are set up, there is a numbering sequence that is universal through the accounting world, and we'll be able to know, an accountant will be able to know what account is being associated with the account number. Typically, people use either a 4-digit or a 5-digit account number. These are 5 digits. So I just put out the sequence that current assets, usually which incorporate your bank accounts, are the 10,000, 1000s. Property, plant, and equipment are the 1700s to 1900s. Liabilities, operating liabilities, stockholders' equity, operating revenue, and then expenses.
Yeah, and one thing I just wanted to add real quick is in Zoho Books, for example, most of the accounts are actually pre-populated that when you create the organization, and that's because there's a number of required accounts that the software needs. For example, there needs to be a sales account, there needs to be an income account, expense account, and so you can actually go in and edit those and add in account numbers. They don't come pre-populated with account numbers, and then you can add additional accounts as well. But the question I had for Val was, as a CPA, should business owners actually be creating their own accounts, or should they leave this solely to a CPA or an accountant to decide?
Well, I mean, if they know what they're doing, we don't have much trouble with that. But it's generally what we've seen over the years is when they start messing with it, that's usually what you get is a mess. I had a doc client once who took an office, a very expensive ski boat, and thought he could place that cost in an office account that he set up, cut office expenditures under office expense, which doesn't make any sense, and put this expensive ski boat in there because he'd been told if he used it for ski outings for his staff in his medical office that he could do that. There are a bunch of issues going on there. Not good. So we'd prefer to leave the accounting stuff to an accountant, but there's plenty of small business owners that once they get the gist, if we get the right framework in place first, so the accounts are set up by somebody else, they can operate within that. But yeah, bringing up the issue of actually creating an account, type of account, and structure like that, that could be something that could end up creating kind of a mess.
Yeah, and the only reason I kind of bring that up is I know, this happens in Zoho Books. It happens in some other products like QuickBooks as well. But it's a little hard to unravel transactions,
Yeah.
right? Let's say you created an account and you really shouldn't have put it there, but then now you've associated like a dozen or so transactions, and those transactions get nested. Like other things happen to them. They get associated to a bank transaction. They get associated to a receipt. If you want to switch accounts, that becomes kind of annoying. Have you had to do that, Josh?
Sometimes it
Okay.
really depends.
Yeah,
I feel
so
on a few occasions it's been such a mess. I've had to go in and clean up that what we've literally done, Tal, is taken the last good financials, income statement, balance sheet, last good financials, and go to the bank recs and stuff, and literally just dump all the work that's been done, create a whole new set of electronic books, move the data forward and go forward from there and lose the history because they've made such a mess.
Yeah, I've seen that a lot as well. It really just comes down to what I always told my clients is if you don't know, create an Ask Accountant account just so you can dump everything in there if you have questions on it, just so the accountant's aware of certain situations.
Oh, that's pretty clever. All right, I like that.
And one thing, Kala and Nathan, to add to this is a lot of people at the end of their chart of accounts create a 99999 account number, which is Ask My Accountant.
Right.
I think a lot of the issues that happen are people miscategorize transactions or put transactions into the wrong account because they're not sure where they need to be associated to. So realistically, accountants don't love the 9999 Ask My Accountant when there's 200 or 300 transactions there at the end of the year. But I think if there's 10 or 20, it definitely gives the ability for the user and the business owner to be able to ask the accountant at the end of the year and say, hey, these are transactions I don't know where they should be booked. Can these be fixed or corrected? And that will give the accountant trust in their client, and it'll also give the client trust in their accountant.
Got it.
And just a point here, Tal, I probably should have made it right at the front of the webcast. In my opinion, I've been in business for 35 years. My opinion, every small business, even really mom and pop shop, should have a kind of be able to get to a good accountant and a good attorney. Those two things. The mistakes that we did in our business where it cost us more money than you can believe, because we were accountants, we could kind of run our own books, but it was related to the legal side because we thought we know everything. No, you don't. And it's good to have a really good accountant and a really good attorney that that you can pay them so much per hour to come in and give you some good advice, and have those people right from the very get-go. It'll prevent a lot of these mistakes.
That is sage advice. Appreciate that, Val.
Just moving forward, these are some questions that I get from my clients when people walk into the door, talking about the chart of accounts. So how should my chart of accounts be set up? Well, realistically, the balance sheet is for your accountant, and that's where you should get guidance in terms of where assets and liabilities, if you have mortgages, loans taken out, fixed assets, or purchase of equipment, as well as real estate. That's something that I would advise to get some guidance in terms of how those transactions should be booked. However, the income and expense accounts, which are your profit and loss statement, is realistically for you in the sense that it'll give you the ability to, like I was saying, to look at your books and see what is happening of an overview, and the ability to be able to look at those accounts and put them together and put them on paper really help. The next question that I hear a lot is, does it matter the names of my accounts? Realistically, no. You want the name of the accounts to be able to be readable and for people to know what they are. Typically, I have seen lots of names of accounts that you look at it and you're like, hey, what is this? And you want it to be a little straightforward. And if anybody's reading financial reports, they're able to interpret what they are. Another question is, how should I create my income accounts? Income accounts realistically are your income buckets, depending on the type of product and services that you want, that you sell. you would want to show that in your books in the sense that you'll be able to break out the different types of income that you have and be able to see what they are from a screenshot of looking at reports. And the last question, which I touched upon, is what type of accounts do the accountants care about? And realistically, it's your balance sheet, but they also look at everything. So yeah. So just moving forward.
One comment on setting up accounts too. In the income and expense area, set up enough detail that you need to manage your business, but don't get terribly complex and create a system that's unwieldy and bogs you down and you don't want to use.
Mm-hmm.
So Val, just a quick comment. I actually had a client that came into the door, so to speak, about a couple months ago, and I've been in touch with them ever since. And they were using an Excel sheet to manage their books for about 2 or 3 years. It was a very convoluted system that they created themselves, and the entire system was designed by having tabs for each month and putting things in Excel, doing bank reconciliations in Excel, and it was very, very convoluted. So we moved them to QuickBooks Online, and I did training for them, and I'm still in contact with daily issues that they have in terms of booking transactions. But when they started creating their chart of accounts, they had over 250 accounts, and they're a small $3 million revenue business.
Mm-hmm.
And they were so granular that
it's overkill.
It was overkill, and the accountants who are doing their tax returns said, listen, we only look at the first line item. You can be as granular as you want, but do you really are you looking at information to be able to create budgets, forecasts, et cetera? And they weren't. So,
do you really need that detail to manage your business? If not, it's overkill. We had that in our own little business where one partner went way deep on detail and it became just overkill and not necessary. So we had to redo the whole thing.
For sure. And that's definitely something that to look out for is you can get as granular as possible, but you want to be as granular to the point that it actually makes sense.
Right. That's helpful, not.
For sure. So just moving forward, the balance sheet, it's a report that shows a company's assets, liabilities, and stockholders' equity at a specific point in time. It also provides a basis for evaluating business capital structure. And essentially, the balance sheet is a financial statement that provides a snapshot of what a company owns and owes on a specific date. So one thing just to point out about the balance sheet rolls each year. The P&L is a snapshot of that year specific.
Mm-hmm.
And real quick, are you ready to move on, Josh?
Yes.
So before we do that, we're flying through time here. We're actually halfway through. I'm going to launch our second poll question for everyone. Again, if you are a CPA, make sure you answer these, but everyone, we would love to have you answer them. And then also, if you look on the left-hand side, there's a questions panel. Not sure if you saw those bubbles light up, but if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in there. We're answering them throughout the presentation. We can also do a Q&A at the end. Hopefully we'll have some time. It's a great, easy way as compared to the chat bar. So I'll give this another 10 seconds or so. And we'll close this in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And for my other co-presenters, the question was, which of the following is not a balance sheet account? Choices are assets, owner's equity, sales revenue, and liabilities. Show the results, and the majority have it correct. It is sales revenue. All right. Thank you so much. All right, moving on. So P&Ls, let us know what we got to know, Josh.
Awesome. So quick comment. I'm going to go a little quicker through just the balance sheet profit and loss just to cover a little more detail. But I'm really, really enjoying the conversation thus far. I hope everybody else is enjoying the podcast feel. I think it's great that, you know, we have a group of panelists and we're just talking through this, feel free to, you know, drop in the chat if you like this, but I'm having so much fun so far. So moving forward, the profit and loss statement or income statement is a financial statement that summarizes the revenue, costs, and expenses, and gives you a clear snapshot of what's going on with your business. So what a lot of business owners, especially small businesses, this is realistically the main thing that they look at to see, you know, what income's coming in and what their expenses are, and also to understand what their profit is. And the statement also provides information on a company's ability to generate profits by increasing revenue and reducing costs, and it will give you the ability to be able to, you know, if you're a service-based business, to be able to look at new jobs that are coming in and be able to price them accordingly because you already did them and you have a P&L created for that, if it's a job or a specific type of project. And it also gives you the ability to understand what's happening. So moving forward into income and expenses, this slide just gives you a little more detail of what income and expenses are. Income, most businesses have one main revenue stream, but there are different types of income buckets, which we'll discuss in a second. And the expenses are expense accounts have the largest variety of categories in the sense that they're on your financial statements and consist of office expenses, payroll, purchase for goods sold, insurance, rent, etc. So kind of moving along and going into the next step of your setup. Now that you have all of your chart of accounts set up and we clearly understand what the financial statements are and what we're trying to accomplish from having the backbone of your accounting system, of your chart of accounts, now it's time to look at your lists. So the first two lists on here are pretty straightforward. Your customer list and your vendor lists. Customer lists are, you know, anyone who's your customer. Typically, it gives you the ability to track the sales that you do with that customer and look at what is happening there. And the vendors is the other side of it in terms of who you're paying, how often, etc. The next list that is very important, which is the backbone to the customer list in terms of invoicing is your products and services. So depending on your products and services, if you're a product-based business or a service business or both, these lists gives you the ability to put them on line items on invoices and gives you the ability to know what you're selling and streamlines the process of creating invoices, etc. The next main list is recurring and memorized transactions. What is great in Zoho Books and other accounting systems, you have the ability to memorize transactions in the sense that if you have a reoccurring bill that happens so often, it will remind you, have a notification, and you'll be able to enter it in. And the same thing with invoices, you can have reoccurring invoices as well. The next thing is terms. A lot of the standard terms are 30 days, 90 days, pay on receipt. But there are companies and small businesses who I've dealt with who have custom terms, if it's 15 days, 10 days, and really understanding from an infrastructure point of view and a business process when you want to get paid and what your terms are. The next thing are payment methods. So when data is entered into Zoho Books or any other accounting system, we really want to be able to look at how you were paid and what the payment methods are. It also gives you the ability to scale. So as an example, if you're a company who is taking credit cards and receiving, 3% off of everything, and you're not really doing so much credit card business, gives you the ability to look at that and be able to say, hey, maybe we should start taking check or cash. The next thing, which I think is the core part of the presentation with the chart of accounts and lists, is your income buckets. And then you have your bank accounts, assets, liabilities, equity, and then expenses and reoccurring expenses. So just moving forward, I want to comment on products and services. So this is a very good and core list, and I would love to, in a second, hear from Val in terms of experience, in terms of products and services, and what people have done. But outside of the chart of accounts, you can also use the system to track products and services that you buy and sell. It also gives you the ability to look at items, service-based items, non-inventory parts, inventory parts, as well as the use of item types directly affects the use and postings of the items on each invoice and bill, and it creates a line item. So Val, if you don't mind me asking, has there been anything that you've seen on the product and service side in the last 30 years that has jumped out?
Well, I think the key thing is, like we were talking about with chart of accounts, track what you really will look at and keep track of later. Set up lists based on what you really want to pay attention to. If it's not something you don't want to pay attention to, let's say you've got a kit and kitting, and you put 4 or 5 parts into one kit, and you still got to track that as an inventory item, but still don't get hung up on being too detailed on certain things if it's not something that makes a lot of sense to you. Because a lot of people have these great intentions that they're going to create the world's greatest accounting system for their business right off the start, and they get too involved, too many lists, too many categories, too many thises and that's. And you can do that in products and services too, and it becomes unwieldy. Build it as you go, kind of add stuff to it as you go, and it will evolve, I promise you.
For sure. Thank you, Val. So, Tala, if we could just go to the next slide. And I apologize, everybody, if I'm talking fast. I think a surprise well, it's not a surprise because I'm going to reveal it now. But I want to get to a demo to show you what I do as a consultant when you walk into my door and we walk through this process. Obviously, it's going to be shortened in time. Usually a consult's an hour to 2 hours. We're going to do it in 5 to 10 minutes. But I definitely want to show you that. So I don't want you to feel like I'm rushing you or I sound rushed. So just moving on, this is a continuation of the products and services. So the other thing to note with products and services is inventory. Now, a lot of businesses keep track of inventory. Inventory is a beast in its own right, in the sense of it's very hard to understand. And we actually have somebody in Presti and Igley who is a inventory specialist. He's a colleague of mine named Mike, and he is 100% great with the inventory side of things and the technology of inventory. So I just want to move to the next slide. This is actually my favorite slide, and one of my favorite parts of Zoho Books and accounting in general is the ability to tag transactions. Other types of systems also call them class tracking or location tracking. In Zoho Books, it's called tagging. And within the realm of tagging, you can use location, license, salesperson, order, context, department, products. Tagging realistically is a way that you can tag or put a indicator on a specific transaction to be able to look at it in a different way. And you can run all different financial statements and reports based off of these tags. As an example, I have a client that is a nonprofit. They're a club, and they have many different types of events. So they use tagging for their events, and every type of event they have a specific tag, and every transaction, invoice, bill, expenses, they put on that, and they can actually they can create a P&L based off of these tags, and know if they were profitable on the events that they had. So I think that this is definitely a crucial part. And as a business owner or an accountant, depending on the people in the audience, this is definitely something that is a great tool to get more information out of your data. So the other thing that I just want to comment on the next slide is that Zoho is the operating system for a small business, for your business, and it has 50 plus different apps. And the best part about Zoho Books, and obviously Val, Nathan, and Tala can comment on this more than I can, because the main thing is that you can integrate any type of app into Zoho Books using applications through Zoho, and it really gives you the ability to scale and gives you the ability to use different types of applications and integrate them if you're not getting the features that you need out of Zoho Books. One of the things that I like as an accountant that I think is great is Docs. The ability to have all your documentation and be able to view it while you're in the accounting system is amazing. And there is a toggle on the top of Zoho Books that shows all the reports. So, I have a client in Sweden, and I do bank reconciliations for them and go through their system monthly, quarterly, and they don't send me any bank statements or anything like that. I go into their Zoho Books. Everything is there by Docs. It's very easy to get it and communicate with him. If I have any notes or anything, I drop them in. So that's one feature that I love. There's obviously, with 50 different types of applications, so many other features that they have that are amazing. So the other thing just to comment on is custom fields. So custom fields within Zoho Books and other accounting systems gives you the ability for customers and vendor profile information as well as transactions. So as an example, I have a client who has a member ID. They're a non-for-profit, they're a club, and they have a specific member ID. So we created a custom field, which gives the ability for people to search for that customer based off that ID, run reports based off that ID, etc. Also, custom fields can be extracted from another system or new tagging feature. And also, adjusting custom fields on customer vendor information applies to all transactions related to the same, which is a good thing to note.
And one thing I just want to note is that in Books, if you create custom fields, obviously there's a bunch of different types of custom fields you can create, whether they're drop downs or multiple choice or fill in the blank or numbers. But you can also choose to display the information on the PDF of the invoice or whichever document, or you don't have to. So there's a lot of different ways you can use them just internally. You can use them for customers as well.
Awesome. Thanks, Tala. So one thing that I just want to mention is a lot of people, when they create their books and they're creating a small business or starting a small business, depending on if they're an LLC or an S Corp, C Corp, etc., have a personal account and a business account. And sometimes the personal account is used for business. Realistically, all businesses should be set up with the business checking account to avoid any confusion with personal expenses and income. All of your business transactions pass through the cash account, this specific account, which would be your operating account. And the cash account is the most important account in your accounting system for tracking your income and expenses. So on the next slide, I highlight the importance of bank transactions. So Zoho Books makes it very easy to categorize transactions with features such as downloading transactions directly from the bank. And a lot of my consults and discussions with clients are setting up your chart of accounts, making sure income buckets are correct and that they feel comfortable with that, and then looking at bank feeds and bank transactions. Realistically, that besides the chart of accounts, the transactions are the core of the system, and that's where you get your information from. So smart technology that develops rules as you go. So if you have, let's say you go to Starbucks every morning and your coffee is you book to meals and entertainment, there are ways that you can create rules where it will automatically recognize that category.
Yeah, that can definitely save you a lot of time. I've had a lot of situations where I just create the rules so I can get through bank reconciliations a lot quicker.
Well, and then real quick, I just want to, I know we're kind of running out of time, but for folks who aren't as accounting inclined as the three of you, the reason you'd want to associate bank transactions in the first place is to make sure that transactions that are coming through on your bank statement match up with transactions that you've created inside your accounting system, and vice versa. And so it's basically the only real way you have to double check your transactions, whether that is a bill that you charged on your company credit card that you didn't create an expense for, or money that hasn't been paid by a customer because you see an outstanding invoice but there's no deposit associated with it. So that's really the reason why you're doing these in the first place, right?
100%.
All right. Great. Just a couple more slides before the demo. Josh, so reporting.
So thanks, Tala. So now that we have your chart of accounts set up, your lists are set up, and now you have your bank transactions entered into your accounting system, the last step is let's look at your reports and make sure things look accurate and be able to interpret them. So as transactions are being recorded via the bookkeeping function, the foundation for reports and financial statements is being created. And the purpose of these reports, like I said earlier in discussions with Val and Nathan, really give you a overview of what's happening, your balance sheet and your profit and loss. Why? If all bank transactions are recorded, all cash movement has been recorded, representing all income and expenses. So now moving on to the next slide, we have accounts receivable and accounts payable. Depending, on the type of business that you have, realistically, you want to have a good accounts receivable report, giving you the ability to know who owes you money, and be able to invoice them and make sure that you're getting paid. AR is the cash due from customers, and keeping it up to date is critical, and really gives you an accurate snapshot of what your earnings are and what money can be coming through the door. Accounts payable on the next slide. Payables are essentially the opposite of receivables in that they represent expenses that have been incurred, that there has not been cash outlay, and it also gives you the ability to know who you owe money to, and maintaining an accounts payable record is very good. Now, what I see with a lot of clients is they don't really keep track of accounts payable, especially a small business, because they pay things that are due right away. Something comes in, they charge their card, they pay for it, on to the next. But keeping a track of accounts payable, especially paying at the terms of what your vendors are, if it's 15 days or 30 days, gives you the opportunity to be able to scale and budget and actually make sure that you have income to cover all your expenses, and also gives you the ability to know when things are due, and when you can pay. Realistically, we're in a society that, especially New York City, that everything is, New York minute, so to speak. But sometimes vendors, depending on their terms, can be paid and can wait if it's 15, 30 days, 90 days, etc.
Yeah, and I will add as well, if you are not familiar with accounts receivable or payable, you need to reach out to an accountant to kind of get that set up for you, because a lot of my cleanups in the past have been with accounts payable and receivables, and those can be very overwhelming.
All right, so I just want to, I appreciate that, Nathan. Just want to let everyone know we have a few minutes left. We're going to let Josh kind of show us just a quick rundown of what he does when he meets with clients. Josh, are you able to share your screen with us?
Yes. Everybody can see my screen?
Yep, we can see it.
Awesome. So this is a sample company within Zoho Books. I'm just switching the company. Okay. So typically when I sit down with clients, the first thing that we look at is your chart of accounts. Your chart of accounts are located under the accountant tab. And we look to make sure, like what we discussed thus far, everything is in order. That you have your bank accounts, current assets, liabilities, and for the business owner, we spend a great deal of time looking at income buckets. And what I like to do with my clients is discuss the types of services that they offer or products that they offer, and be able to make sure that they get the information that they want. So as an example, I have a client who is a production company, but they also do production, they do design, and they do, 2 or 3 different services outside of just production, video production. So what we would do is I would sit down and ask them the questions of, well, what other services do you get? Even if it's not a lot, what type of income are you receiving? And can we look at this and then say next month or next year, oh, I actually was receiving more money by doing more design work than production work. I think the business is shifting. And let's now look at that. So that gives a clear overview of that. The other thing is, like I said, is we look at items, make sure the items tab looks clean. These are used when you create invoices and gives you the ability to make sure that your items are correct so you can invoice your clients. Now, there are different types of items. Like I said, there are inventory items, non-inventory parts, but the main thing is to make sure from a invoicing standpoint that you have the correct items so you can bill your clients. The next thing that we look at is the customer list, and I like to give a tour through the customer list by clicking on the customer, looking at the activity, showing the ability to look at the balances of each customer, say, oh, this customer has a balance of $827. When was this invoice sent out? Are we waiting for it to be received? And what could we do about it? And Zoho, as an example, has a great way of keeping comments. You can look at different sales transactions by looking at just invoices, current payments, and filtering through estimates, retainer invoices, etc. And then depending on the type of business, like I said, a lot of people don't do an accounts payable list. I think that realistically, you should. And that's definitely something I can help with and that I help people with by looking at vendors, trying to understand who you're paying, why you're paying them. I have a client that goes to Starbucks every day and spends $10. So, at the end of the year, they have $5,000 in meals and entertainment, or let's say $30,000 of meal and entertainment, but $5,000 of it is coffee. That's something to look at and say, hey, why is my Starbucks being so much? And what is that for, as an example. And the main thing that I get from all my clients and things that I deal with on a regular basis is bank feeds. Understanding bank transactions, looking at the transactions, making sure that you can match them appropriately, looking at the accounts, being able to see the transaction, making sure you can add them appropriately and they're matched to the correct account. And then after that, we review the reports together. We sit down, we look at your profit and loss statement, make sure that the P&L looks clean, and we feel comfortable with the data that it presents. And as a business owner, you obviously know where you're at and what you're trying to do and where you want to go with your business. And having an outside view and being able to look at the P&L and say, hey, this was your profit last month. This was, your net profit of the year. It's a little lower than last year. It looks like your business, is shifting. Just want to point that out. And then the last part of this entire process is the bank reconciliation process to make sure that all your books are in order. Reconciliations are realistically the ability to look at your bank statement and look at your activity within Zoho Books and make sure they match. And if they do match, it'll give you some ease in the sense that there's no duplicate transactions, everything's categorized properly, and everything that actually happened, because in real life, whatever happened from the bank is real, happened in your books. And you can make sure when you give it to your accountant, things are reconciled, everything's in order, and then you get working. And I usually check on my clients once a month or just to see how they're doing, especially during COVID. We're in the time of everybody's...
Sorry to cut you off. I apologize, just because we have a few folks who are attending who have to jump off for other webinars. There is going to be a follow-up. We're actually doing a series with Josh. The next session we're going to do next Friday is going to be on migrating accounting systems. Everyone who registered for this session will also get an email for that. Really apologize. But one thing I do want to show Josh is I'm going to put up your email on the screen for anyone who is interested in reaching out to you. Josh does a great job of responding to folks. If you look at the chat panel or the question panel, I did actually put in several links. So go ahead and check out those links. One of those links is for a video that Josh and I did on migrating accounting systems a couple of years ago. But Josh's email is right there in the center. It's jblesnick@pnatc.com. If you're interested in working with him or just finding out more if you're a good fit. I apologize, we're over by about a minute. I do have to launch one last poll question for any folks who may have missed it. Here's a real quick one. Anything that you guys would like to finish off with? Josh, you go first.
I think that this was great. I had so much fun and really enjoyed. I apologize for going over also. I was just at the end of finishing my statement, but I hope that you guys got a lot out of this presentation and really understand what we do as consultants to make sure you get what you need out of your system, and would love to help and assist.
Awesome. And then the last thing I just want to add before I invite Val and Nathan up for a goodbye is I put a link to, so I actually realized I didn't associate the presentation with the handout. So if you'd like to see these slides, I'll send it as an email to everyone. But if you look at the chat bar, I put a link there to the slideshow. So you can actually just view the slides there. You'll be able to check them out. But thank you guys so much for joining. We hope everyone stays safe and healthy. I just want to bring up Val and Nathan. Thank you guys for joining. Any words you want to say?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for everybody who attended, and hopefully we helped out as much as we could. And if you need anything, just let us know or let Josh know.
Yep. And I'll say goodbye from Val. Feel free to keep an eye on Zoho.com we'll be posting our upcoming webinar links there. We've also some other resources. But thank you guys so much. It was awesome. And then if you are a CPA and you need CPE credit, I'm going to end the session. Stay in this browser window. Don't close it. You'll have to fill out the evaluation, and then we'll issue your CPE certificate later today.
Thanks,
Thank you guys
everyone.
so
Be
much,
safe.
and have a great weekend.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.